I've said it many times, I know I would change my ways, I know for sure. When all the crows decide to meet, they settle down beneath my feet. I've got it right and I got it wrong, but I learned my lesson hanging on. Come sit here with me by the fire and let it go for a little while. So be here as the night starts.
Hey guys, it's Kira and welcome back to another vlog. It has actually inadvertently been a few weeks since I last picked up the camera, and that is because, first of all, 2023 is already going so quickly. Today is the 1st of February and I cannot believe we are already a whole month into this year. It is a little bit wild to me. And then second of all, as well as seeming to go super quickly, 2023 has also gotten off to a slightly stressful start for me. I'm happy to say that, given that I am now picking up the camera again, all of that stress has sort of come to an end, but has been a slightly stressful few weeks, and that is because within the first couple of weeks of the year we got a call from our letting agent letting us know that our landlord was planning to sell the house that we currently live in. So immediately, having slight existentialist tendencies, that set off immediate panic alarm bells in my head, like, oh my god, we need to find somewhere new to live, we're not going to have anywhere, no one will take us with a cat, and basically I just went into immediate panic. Now, like I said, I can accept that I am a bit of an existentialist and that the panic was largely self-driven, because the letting agent did tell us, you know, the house is going on the market, there's going to be viewings, but until there is a buyer in place, you know, there's no pressure for you to move out straight away. But equally, you just never know how these things are going to go, or how quickly a house might sell and what interest it might have. And so despite them not putting any immediate pressure on, it is the kind of situation that just naturally comes with stress and pressure, because it's your living situation and it's not nice to kind of not know where you're going to be living in the next month or so. So I personally felt like we needed to start looking for a new place immediately, because I wanted to make sure we were ahead of the curve and not left in a difficult situation where we were struggling to find somewhere or had to settle for somewhere that wasn't very nice just to make sure that we had somewhere to live. So we started looking for houses straight away. Now, we rent this house that we're in right now and we're planning to rent again. We would love to be able to buy somewhere, you know, within the near-ish future, but as I'm sure many of you guys know, it's difficult to get onto the property ladder, especially right now, because house prices are kind of crazy, mortgage rates are even crazier, and then when you add into the fact that I started a new job 6 months ago and Jay has literally just started a new job, it just didn't feel like buying or looking to buy seemed like the right thing to do right now. So we decided to start looking for a new place to rent, which was all well and good, but rental places just go so quickly, so that definitely adds to the pressure and the stress, because it feels like you are constantly having to refresh Rightmove and find places and call estate agents, only to be told as soon as you call them that that house has already had too many applicants and they're not looking to take any more, and it is just a really stressful situation. Luckily, I had a very supportive manager at work who let me use some flexi time to go and do house viewings and all that stuff, and I'm very happy to say that we managed to find a new house that we're going to be moving into in a couple of weeks' time, which is so exciting. So all that stress will be worth it, because I'm genuinely so looking forward to this new house. I think it's going to be a really nice place to live, but the first few weeks of this year have just gone by in a blur of stress and existentialism, which I'm very happy to say has now come to an end, and that means I'm back vlogging. This is probably going to be one of the last vlogs you see in front of this bookshelf specifically, because we are about to start packing our books this weekend and basically just getting everything ready to move, because we'll be moving next weekend. I'm gonna go through all of my books at some point this week and just see if there's anything that I am able to cull and give to charity. I don't think there's going to be loads of books, because when we moved into this house 2 years ago, we managed to get rid of loads of books. There's a video of that somewhere on my channel. If you're interested, I'll try and find a link for it so that you can go and check that out. But since we moved into this house, we've definitely been better at not buying crazy amounts of books, and so I think while I'll be able to get rid of a few books, there won't be anywhere near as many as I got rid of last time. But I definitely want to just go through, see what I own, have a check if there's anything I don't want to keep, and then we can start bagging all of the books up and getting ready for the move, which is going to be so exciting. But on the note of books, I do have a very exciting book to unbox, which has been delivered to me by HarperCollins. So very, very big thank you to HarperCollins for sending this lovely pink box. And I thought we would unbox it together because there is a new release that I'm very excited about. Woo. Okay. Ta-da! We have ourselves a copy of Wayward by Amelia Hart. This is a debut that is coming out this week, and I'm so excited to read it because I think it sounds absolutely incredible. I'm going to read you the blurb because I feel like that is the best way to just understand why this book sounds so interesting. So, it says, Kate, 2019. Kate flees London, abandoning everything for Cumbria and Wayward Cottage, inherited from her great aunt. There a secret lurks in the bones of the house, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. Violet, 1942. Violet is more interested in collecting insects and climbing trees than becoming a proper young lady, until a chain of shocking events changes her life forever. Alpha, 1619. Alpha is on trial for witchcraft, accused of killing a local man. Known for her uncanny connection with nature and animals, she is a threat that must be eliminated. But wayward women belong to the wild and they cannot be tamed. Weaving together the stories of 3 women across 5 centuries, Wayward is an enthralling novel of female resilience and the transformative power of the natural world. I just think that sounds so incredible because I love stories with multiple perspectives and multiple timelines, and I think this is going to be a really interesting way of multiple timelines that are interconnected but don't necessarily converge, because obviously physical timelines will prevent these characters from ever interacting with each other. And yet I think it's going to be a really interesting combination of how, you know, things that have happened previously can influence your reality without actually ever physically crossing paths with you. And I just think this sounds so interesting. I'm forever in awe of people who can just like come up with an incredible idea and just like have an epic debut novel, and this sounds like one like that. Like I said, this was sent to me by HarperCollins and I'm so excited to read it, but they are also hosting a giveaway, so if you are interested in the sound of this book and you would like to try and win yourself a copy, there is a link in the description box to follow where you can enter that giveaway. It's completely free to enter and it is open until midnight on the 9th of February, which is next week now. So if you're interested, I would recommend entering because I feel like it's definitely worth trying to win a copy of this, and I'm going to be trying to do some reading throughout this week. As I'm sure you can guess from the radio silence, lack of videos, and probably if you follow me on Goodreads, lack of updates, another thing that has suffered throughout the last few weeks has been my reading, because I haven't really been doing any, so I think this book is going to be the perfect thing to get me back in. And like I said, if you'd like to try and win a copy, the link to the giveaway is in the description box, and a big thank you to HarperCollins for sending me this. Now it is, gosh, what time is it? I'm not even wearing a watch. I must have my watch on charge somewhere. It's just about time to start work on Wednesday morning, so I'm going to get to work and I'll probably catch up with you for my lunchtime walk. My lunchtime walk, and I'm now just making a quick bit of lunch. Definitely feel like I need a bit of lunch inspiration at the moment because I am just having the same thing every day, which is a bagel with Marmite and peanut butter on top, which is a combination I had never even considered till Marmite brought out their own Marmite peanut butter, which is so good. There goes the bagel. But obviously it's more expensive to buy them combined in the Marmite branded one just because it's got the brand on. So I just get my own peanut butter and Marmite and put them on top of a bagel, and it is so good. It's like obviously nutty from the peanut butter and then like very savoury from the Marmite, and obviously Marmite is famously a love or hate kind of thing, but I personally love it. But yeah, I just feel like I'm in the habit at the moment of having just the same thing every single day, which, you know, it's not always a bad thing, but at the same time it is nice to mix things up. But I just really struggle with good lunch ideas. So anywho, that walk was so lovely. I feel like I am really making an effort this year to get away from my desk because I work from home, aside from like the very odd occasion when I travel down to London for work, but for the most part I'm working from home, and it is so easy, especially in winter, I think, to just like sit at your desk all day and not go out, and then it's dark when you start work and it's dark when you finish work. So I'm making sure, even if it is just a quick 20-minute walk, to get out away from my desk. And I saw 2 park cats today, which was such a treat. The one in the tree was so beautiful. I saw her the other day as well. I'm assuming it's a she because it was too pretty to be a boy cat. She had like a very delicate face, and she was just gorgeous. So she obviously likes that tree because she was in the exact same tree the other day. She wasn't there yesterday though, which is why I'm confident that she is there by choice and not because she's stuck. But yeah, she is adorable. And then the other park cat is called Simba because he is around all the time and he has a collar and he is very cute. And I have to say, obviously we're moving soon, and I think the thing that I'm most sad about is the fact that all of these cats from this local area, I won't see them anymore. I'm so sentimental about things like that, but both of our next door neighbours have cats and I love to chat to them when I see them outside. Obviously we'll be bringing our cat with us, and I'm excited to see whether Oscar makes friends with any new cats where we live next, but I will genuinely be sad not to see all of the local cats from around here anymore, because I do feel like I develop like a parasocial relationship with any cat that I see, and if it's one that I see regularly, I genuinely feel like it is kind of my cat, even though it obviously is not. So that was my lunchtime walk, just about to eat, and I thought that we would chat about TV and film because whilst I have not been reading at all recently, I have been watching a few great things, and I thought I would share some recommendations, and then if any of you guys have anything else that you would recommend watching at the moment, then I would love to hear it, because I feel like me and Jay have been on quite a film and television kick lately. So the first film, it's actually probably the only film, the rest are TV series, but the first film is The Banshees of Inisherin, which is on Disney Plus in the UK at least, and it has just been nominated for like 9 Oscars, and I can 100% see why, because it was such a great film. So like slow and mundane, but I love that in both film and books. I just feel like stuff that just taps into the essence of what it is to be a real life human, rather than something dramatic that you know is definitely orchestrated just for film. I feel like it's just so, not relatable necessarily, but it kind of hits you right in your core when it's something that feels so like authentically human. So absolutely loved it. The music, the characters, it was also understated and yet really powerful and emotional at the same time, and I absolutely loved it. So that was one that I would definitely recommend. And if anyone has any films that feel like that, I feel like it's such a specific essence that comes from a film like that, and if anyone has any recommendations, I would lap them up, because I loved that film so much. Definitely made me cry, but to be honest, it's not that hard to make me cry. The next thing that I've been watching, Jay and I have been watching The Last of Us, which is on, I think it's on HBO, but we're watching it through Now TV. And again, we just watched the 3rd episode and that made me cry. I genuinely think it might be one of the most beautiful episodes of television I've ever seen in my life. So anyone who doesn't know, obviously The Last of Us is based on a game. Jay has played this game. I do not play any games like that, or any games at all, to be honest, so I have no idea what it's about, other than that it was like a post-apocalyptic type thing. And as it turns out, it's a post-apocalyptic situation with zombies that are caused by like a fungus mutation, so that's me never eating mushrooms ever again because it has genuinely put me off. But I was kind of expecting something like, you know, The Walking Dead, that's very like zombified and stuff like that. And while there is definitely an element of that in The Last of Us, I feel like it is way more character driven, and there is just like a lot more depth to the story. And episode 3 was a great example of that, because there was hardly any zombies at all in episode 3. It was just a really beautiful story about these two characters called Bill and Frank, and I won't say anything else because if anyone hasn't watched the series yet, I don't want to give any spoilers, but what I will say is that it was just so touching, and it was a real surprise because I had no idea that was coming from that episode, because the first two had definitely been more along the post-apocalyptic kind of narrative, and obviously that was part of episode 3, but I felt like it just really added a lot of depth to the story, and it was so incredibly well told, so emotional, but just like really touching, and kind of showed like how people can find connections and form these incredible relationships even in like the most unlikely circumstances. So The Last of Us, incredible, but episode 3, I don't think it will ever be beaten because it was just 10 out of 10. And then finally, I have also been watching Happy Valley. Now, Happy Valley is on season 3 currently, which is going to be the final season, and the final episode of the last season is coming out this weekend. But I actually hadn't watched any of it until like a couple of weeks ago, and then I kept seeing James Norton, who is one of the main characters of the show. He is also in Little Women, he plays Meg's husband, and he is in the BBC 2016 miniseries of War and Peace, which is one of mine and Jay's favourite things of all time, and he plays Prince Andrei Bolkonsky in that. So we've kind of known this actor for ages, which is why I was following him on Instagram, and he'd been posting loads about Happy Valley because he is one of the stars of the show, and I finally decided to go ahead and give it a watch, and I binged the first 2.5 seasons within the space of about 3 days. It was incredible. It's set in Yorkshire, which is fun because obviously, well, West Yorkshire specifically, which is where I'm from, so it's always fun to have a show that is like from or like set in your local area. And it is like a police drama, but not like a typical kind of like detective show. It's very gritty, very dark, and it is just so gripping. I think once you start it, there is absolutely no stopping. So I watched all of the episodes that were available, and then for the last like 3, I've had to wait each week until they're out on television, but it is honestly some of the best TV I have ever watched. So I've been having an excellent time lately with television and film. So if you have any recommendations, let me know, but if not, I would recommend watching those 3 things that I've mentioned because they're all so good. So there we go. I'm planning to start reading Wayward this afternoon when I finish work, because I'll be waiting for Jay to come home, and it seems like the perfect time to crack open a new book. But for now, I'm gonna eat my lunch and head back to my desk for an afternoon of work. Work week ended up going really quickly, so it is now actually Saturday, but what I've read so far of Wayward I'm really enjoying. It's going really quickly because obviously it is 3 main characters and the chapters are quite short, so we're jumping between the 3 perspectives quite rapidly, which I personally really enjoy, especially with books like this that are sort of told across multiple timelines and multiple characters. I feel like the sort of snappiness of like each different perspective and each timeline is a great way to just like completely integrate you in what is happening in the book, because it feels as though like each time you're starting to familiarize yourself with one section, you kind of switched over to the other, and it just feels very like, it's always very refreshing because you're never getting like too far into one plot line and almost like switching off. I know that's probably maybe just a me thing, but I find I can get distracted quite easily with reading, so when books like this kind of keep you on your toes, it's a really great way for me to at least like stay engaged with the plot. So I managed to read 80 pages so far, and like I said, really enjoying it. Seems as though we're kind of going down a path of these 3 women being potentially connected by like a long sort of I guess like linear sort of family line. I don't know exactly how they're connected or how closely related they are, but I do know that Kate, who is our like modern day protagonist, is the great niece of Violet, I think, who is the middle one, who's from the 1940s, but obviously Altha, who is the one who's like the person who was tried as like a witch from the 1600s, is like far removed from these characters in terms of time. So I'm kind of interested to see how her line, which is obviously the line where the sort of witchiness kind of comes into the story, it sort of weaves its way down, and how that then gets connected with the 2 more modern characters. But I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it has quite a nice I don't want to say whimsical, because I feel like it's magic in a sense that is a little bit more like nature focused, but without being like super airy fairy. It feels quite dark and quite gritty, but I'm just quite enjoying it. It feels very like rich in the way that things are being described, and I'm just really enjoying it. So definitely planning to do some more reading this weekend. However, it is also our last full weekend in York, because next weekend we're going to be moving house. So today my mum and my sister are coming round, and we're going to go for coffee in York, kind of making the most of the last couple of times that I can go to all of my favourite cafes here, and just treating myself almost like I did when we first moved, and I got like way too excited about how many good cafes there are. And I think me and Jay are gonna start packing, maybe taking some things out of the attic and just getting ready to move next weekend. But when I do have some time to just like sit down with a cup of tea, I'll definitely be doing some more reading of Wayward. Say, packing and unpacking bookshelves has to be one of the like most arduous tasks possibly to ever exist, and that is why, as you can see, I haven't actually done any packing of my bookshelves yet. I've started packing the downstairs bookshelf, which is now empty, which is very exciting, but obviously these shelves in the bedroom, or in the office rather, are the ones that are like completely full with books. The downstairs shelf has more of Jay's like nature, kind of like birds and trees of England kind of books, and also like it tends to be the place where we dump books that we've like recently read or are currently reading, so that one was quite easy to just pack up and get rid of. So I feel like I've ticked something off my to-do list, but equally I have a huge task ahead of me, so I still have lots and lots to do. But what I decided to do first before starting to pack any of the books was, rather than kind of deciding as I went, I looked through all of the shelves and have now picked, I would say, maybe like 20-ish books that I'm definitely going to be getting rid of, because then it means I can just put them in a separate bag to take to a charity shop and donate them, and then everything else that's staying on the shelves I know I can just box up, and it's quite easy because I can just grab them all, put them in a box, and ready to go, and there won't need to be any kind of deciding in the process whilst packing at the same time. So with that said, I thought I would do the whistliest of whistle-stop tours through all of the books that I've decided to unhaul from my shelves before moving. So these books kind of go into 2 main categories. The first is books that I've read and have decided that I didn't really like or don't have much interest in reading again, so I'm going to get rid of them. And then the second category is books that I have bought or been given, haven't actually read yet, and just have very little / no interest in actually reading. So we'll start with the books that I have actually read, beginning with People in Trouble by Sarah Schulman. I think I read this as one of the books that I read in like a 7 books in 1 week kind of thing to get me to my Goodreads goal for 2021, so like just over a year ago now. It was fine, but I just don't recall really loving it, and I think the fact that I don't remember much about it or don't have much connection to it a year on kind of indicates that I don't really have much interest in reading it again, so that one is on the unhaul pile. The next one is Flowers in the Attic, which was a read from I think this summertime. It was a weird book, a creepy book, and not one that I particularly loved or would recommend because it was just so bizarre and horrific in its themes, so that one was an easy decision to just unhaul. The next one we have is A Town Called Solace, which I think I went into expecting more of an intense mystery, and it is a mystery about a missing person and like basically figuring out I think where this girl has gone as she like run away from home or whether she's been abducted, but it didn't actually come across as mysterious as I'd hoped or had been led to believe from the description, and I just didn't really love it as much as I'd hoped to. I feel like the cover and the town, the title just made me feel like it was going to be something that it wasn't quite, and I just didn't love it like I'd hoped to, so that's gone on the unhaul pile. Next up is Assembly by Natasha Brown, which was a really interesting book. It's super short and it's basically I think about a girl going to meet her boyfriend's parents for the first time, if I'm correct. Yeah, so she's basically like meeting her boyfriend's family, and then while she does that she's reflecting on her life and like the assembly of the things that make her a unique individual. It was a really interesting book, but sort of like a one and done kind of story for me because it was so short and because it was so like fragmentary. I felt like it was a really interesting read, but not necessarily one that I'd return to or read again, so I'm kind of donating it so someone else can have the experience as well. Then in a similar vein we have Such Small Hands by Andreas Barber, which was a very short horror story. Kind of interesting. I didn't love or hate it, but because it was so short it's just not one that I think I would find myself returning to. Next up we have The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, which is a historical fiction slash fantasy kind of book, so it has like elements of both genres, which are both genres that I don't particularly gravitate towards. This is the first in a trilogy I believe, but although I read this one a few years ago now, I just haven't ever found myself feeling that inkling to move on with the series, so I might as well just get rid of the first one, so that's gone. Then we have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, who I can categorically say is an author that I just do not enjoy reading. I've tried a few of her works now and I've just never been able to connect with her writing style, so this one is in the bin, not literally, but the bin of my life and into a charity shop. Next up we have The Service by Frankie Mirren. Really interesting book. It's basically about the role of sex work and how that can obviously impact people's lives. It takes, I think it follows 3 different perspectives. Certainly 2, no it is 3 different perspectives. One is from a girl who is at university working as like a high class escort. The other one is someone who is like a lifelong sex worker and that is like her main form of income. And the other is a journalist who is very anti-sex work and is trying to like uncover this world that she sees as very misogynistic. So it's sort of 3 different perspectives on one topic, all intersecting to kind of explore and uncover the nuances of this like very interesting topic. I would so highly recommend this. It was really interesting, but not one that I think I would reread, so then I'm just putting it out there for someone else to pick up and enjoy. Next up we have The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. This is a like historical fiction about, it says it's about when the Queen Helen is kidnapped by Trojans, but it actually ends up being much more about Achilles and Patroclus, I believe is the other guy. It was fine, but as I said before, historical fiction is just not really my like genre that I feel like I gravitate towards, so this one is interesting but hopefully can be enjoyed more by someone else. In a similar note, I have A Sky Painted Gold by Laura Wood, which is a historical fiction set in the 1920s. I would say this one feels more like a young adult fiction, which is not something that I really particularly ever gravitate towards. The cover is absolutely gorgeous, which I think is what made me interested in it in the first place. It's just so beautiful to look at, but not something that is particularly sort of my main sort of thing that I would find myself enjoying. So I read it once and that's enough. Next up we have a collection of short stories by Shirley Jackson, which is The Lottery and Other Stories. I like Shirley Jackson a lot. I particularly enjoy We Have Always Lived in the Castle as well as The Haunting of Hill House, but short stories I don't particularly love. I think I bought this for a Rory Gilmore readathon and it served its purpose, but I have no need for it anymore. Then we have Saltwater by Jessica Andrews, which is quite a recent read actually. I think I read this one in December of last year and it was okay, but just not what I was expecting. It is told in a very, very fragmentary, almost like stream of consciousness way, where you're just getting little anecdotes here and there about our main character's life, which I found made it really hard to connect with her or any of the other characters because the whole novel just felt so fragmentary and almost more like poetry than prose, which is absolutely fine and, you know, an interesting style to write a book in, but just not a style that I personally particularly enjoy. Then we have 3 books that I'm just going to put into one category, which are The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien, The Unfinished Tales by Tolkien, and also The Adventures of Tom Bombadil by Tolkien. I got all of these as part of a Tolkien read-along that I was doing with my friends Lucy and Mary, but they just weren't for me. I enjoyed The Hobbit and I enjoyed the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but fantasy is a genre that I don't particularly enjoy, bar like a few exceptions, and The Unfinished Tales and The Silmarillion are so deep into like the lore of Tolkien and the world of, I can't even remember what it's called now, Middle Earth, so I feel like they just were a step too far into the world of high fantasy for me and I just couldn't get on board with them, so these ones are definitely going in the unhaul pile. One that was a little bit of a disappointment for me was The Christmas Bookshop by Jenny Colgan. I love her Island series and I think it is just such a wonderful and wholesome like reading experience. This one just didn't do it for me. I found the characters hard to connect with and I just didn't love it, so hopefully someone else will. And then finally, I don't know where this came from or when I got it, it must have been in like some kind of book box at some point, but it is The Body Politic by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and I have never read this actually and have no intention of, so we're now onto the books that I haven't read and have decided to get rid of despite that fact. So these are really quick. We have The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North, The Last Tang Standing by Lauren Ho, The Course of Love by Elaine de Botton. We then have My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshevka. We also have Scoff by Pen Vogler, which is a non-fiction about food history in Britain. I don't know why I picked that up. We also have Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. We have The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. We have John Green's The Anthropocene Reviewed. And we also have Little Pieces of You and Me by Vanessa Green, Things My Mother Told Me by Tanya Apatu, The Power by Naomi Alderman, Under a Dancing Star by Laura Wood, the author who also has the really beautiful covers, because honestly, like, how beautiful are these? They're so shiny and lovely, but not for me. Mistletoe and Murder by Robin Stevens, The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and last but not least, Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. So all of those books that I've decided to unhaul are, you know, varying in their genres, styles, and how long I have owned them for, but the thread that runs through them all is that they've been on my shelves and I just have no interest in picking them up. And so for me, that is enough to unhaul them and pass them on to someone who actually does want to read them, because while books are beautiful and I love to have them on my shelves just to look at, I also think it's important that you actually do like read and appreciate them. So if I have no interest in reading a particular book and I know it's been on my shelves for a while, I think it's better to just, you know, part ways and let it go to someone who does want to read it. So no shade to any of those books, but they just aren't for me and that is completely okay. So those are all of the books that I've decided to unhaul. I need to bag them up and take them to a charity shop, but it does feel like quite a relief now that I have like lifted some of the pressure off of my book sort of packing situation. I would love nothing more than if I could just snap my fingers and have the shelves transported to the new house exactly as they are and I didn't have to unpack all of the books and then repack them once we arrive, but obviously that's not the case, so it feels nice to at least have lifted a few books off of those shelves. Now, on the note of books that I am definitely bringing with me, we of course have Wayward, which I have done some more reading of. I'm now on page 227, so I'm over halfway into this book now. I think I've probably got about a third of the book left, and I absolutely love it. As I've mentioned, I think many times, fantasy is not a genre that I particularly gravitate towards. This book obviously deals with the theme of magic and witches, and so despite having like magical undertones, it kind of has that, I guess, like ethereal, whimsical tone to it without feeling fantastical or feeling out of this world. It feels like it combines like nature, which is very obviously tangible and recognisable to all readers, with this sense of like an innate magic that runs within these like female characters that we're reading about. And so it sort of brings magic to the surface without making it kind of like witchy in like a incantations and spells and wizardry kind of way, and it just makes it very digestible, and it feels as though you're reading like just a contemporary novel rather than a sort of fantasy. And I'm not sure exactly where this book would sit in terms of its genre, because it's definitely not a like solid fantasy, but maybe like magical realism. I'm not exactly sure, but what I do know is that I really like the way that it is kind of weaving the very tangible, recognisable real world with these elements of magic as well as elements of historical fiction without it kind of overwhelming the narrative. For someone like me who doesn't tend to read a lot of historical fiction or fantasy, I'm still finding this to be super digestible and really enjoyable. So with that said, I'm actually going to finish up this vlog here because I want to make sure that I edit it in time for any of you guys who want to get yourself a copy of Wayward to enter the giveaway that Harper Fiction are hosting. As I mentioned before, I will leave the link to that in the description box down below. It is of course completely free to enter, and you have a chance of winning a hardback copy of Wayward. So if you think it sounds interesting from what I've said, I definitely recommend entering, because you might as well give it a go and see if you can get yourself a copy. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. The next vlog you see will be when we are moving house, and I have a few very stressful days of packing ahead of me. So wish me luck, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.